Alright, this is a new book I want to go over today. It's the Tao Te Ching. It's translated and annotated by Derek Lin. I want to go through just part one. If you guys have any reflection on it, please offer the reflection. If not, you can stay silent. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of myriad things. Thus, constantly without desire, one observes its essence. Constantly with desire, one observes its manifestations. These two emerge together but differ in name. The unity is said to be the mystery. Mystery of mysteries, the door to all wonders. That's the translation. Now, I'm going to go over the translator's feedback on it. The first line of the Tao Te Ching can be one of the most confusing. Some have interpreted it to mean that we must never speak of the Tao, or that if we try to explain it, then we must have no true understanding of it. What it actually means is that we can never understand the Tao through the intellect alone. We must feel it. Talking about it can be useful, but will never replace the actual experience of living it. Not only is the Tao beyond the power of spoken words to describe, but it is also beyond the power of written words to define. That which can be defined is limited by the definition, and the Tao transcends all limitations. Before the universe came into being, concepts and things did not exist, and no human consciousness was present to perceive and name them. Therefore, the Tao that initiated creation was the ultimate nameless enigma. Once the universe came into being, the stage was set for the physical manifestation of everything, including human beings. These humans eventually attained sufficient awareness to observe all things and name them. Self-serving desires tend to limit us to a superficial level. If we think of other people and do not focus on ourselves, we will find it much easier to connect with the underlying reality. This applies to every aspect of life. It is one of the most powerful teachings of the Tao. The two refer to manifestations, outer appearance and essence, inner truth. They represent the material world and the spiritual realm respectively. Both emerge from the Tao because the Tao encompasses all, not only spirituality but also the physical universe. The basic unity of the two is the mystery that we investigate in Tao cultivation. So he's talking about not going through the intellect, but going through experience. You cannot replace experience with intellect. So it's like the difference between somebody who's studying marriage and how to make a marriage work, opposed to somebody who's actually married and living it and experiencing it through experience. Or somebody who's studying combat, reading books, watching videos, opposed to somebody who's actually engaged in combat, experiencing it for what it is in order to learn. Or I like to use the example all the time. It's like talking about a strawberry and looking at a strawberry, but never actually tasting it and experiencing it. When you actually taste it and experience it, it's beyond what words can describe. So the Tao is about experience. Experience will bring wisdom. It's not just about reading a bunch of books and regurgitating a bunch of fixed, dead knowledge, but living. And through experience, you'll know. So it says that which can be defined is limited by the definition, and the Tao transcends all limitations. This really gets me thinking about Bruce Lee's Tao Jeet Kune Do. Like, the fact of you naming something already puts limitations on it. So Bruce Lee never wanted to label his art. He wanted to have it remain nameless. And even when he created the label Jeet Kune Do, he said himself he wished he never created that label. Because as soon as you label something, it automatically will bring upon limitations. And that's the problem with labels. So he wanted his art to transcend all labels and be limitless. He even has on his gravestone, use no limitation as limitation. I mean, he was so much about not being limited. And notice that anytime you label anything, that will imply limitations. So when people say, oh, what do you practice? And if I say, oh, I practice Kung Fu, that's a label. And that will imply limitations because people will start thinking in their mind, oh, what is Kung Fu? Oh, I've seen this movie, I've seen that. Oh, this is what Kung Fu is all about. Somebody else asks you, oh, what do you practice? Well, I play basketball. Now that label will imply, okay, I've seen basketball on TV before, so this is what this person does. He's a basketball player. So the Tao is not being limited by any of these labels. It's just limitless. So when we use certain labels, we got to be careful which labels we use in order to at the very least, try to impose less limitations upon the labels of which we choose. Because they even had to call this book the Tao Te Ching, and that's a label that already puts limitations upon that label. But I think we should be more intelligent with which labels we choose to use. I remember them interviewing Bruce Lee, and they're like, okay, what are you? And then he'd be like, well, I'm a human being. So rather than saying, oh, I'm Chinese, or I'm American, or I'm a Chinese American, he used the label, I'm a human being, which is more encompassing than just saying, oh, I'm Chinese, or I'm American. So when I use the martial arts, I like to say I practice the martial arts in its entirety, opposed to saying, oh, I practice this little segment of the martial arts, this style. And when I say Kung Fu, I'm talking about I practice the discipline to better myself, not just in martial arts, but just everything in life. That will set less limitations than what other labels will imply. Next part, it says, the universe came to being, concepts and things did not exist, and no human consciousness was present to perceive and name them. Therefore, the Tao that initiated creation was the ultimate nameless enigma. So that gets me to think about...
Sorry, can I leave you a check for Nanny?
Yeah.
So just make it out to her, or what?
Probably make it out to me.
Make it out to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
What that gets me to think about is people mostly would say that God is above everything. But in order for us to even know what God is, somebody had to teach us that word, that concept. This teaching right here is indicating there's something that was initiated before even the creation of concepts and things and labels. And he's saying that that ultimate thing is nameless. So it's not God, it's something beyond God that doesn't even have a name. says self-serving desires tend to limit us to a superficial level. If we think of other people and not just focus on ourselves, we'll find it much easier to connect with the underlying reality. What that gets me to think about, self-serving desires makes me think about like combat sport. You know, like you're just trying to beat everybody up for your own benefit. But when you work together with other people, if you think of other people, so you work with other people and you build together, you create together, you're not just focused on yourself, and it's more about teamwork or family, then it's going to be much easier to connect with the underlying reality. So that teaching right there, to sum it up, is just basically speaking about the importance of compassion, and having compassion will get you closer to the understanding of truth. Two refer to manifestations, outer appearance and essence, inner truth. They represent the material world and the spiritual realm respectively. Both emerge from the Tao because the Tao encompasses all, not only spirituality but also the physical universe. The basic unity of the two is a mystery that we investigate in Tao cultivation. That really gets me to think about the yin-yang symbol. Outer appearance is like the yang, the white. Inner essence, inner truth is like the black yin, and they're both there. Both of them in the Tao. It's just that in America and pretty much almost everywhere around the world, there's so much focus on the outer appearance that they forget about the inner essence. So the Tao is trying to help you reach balance and unity and bring it back to balance. So basically, kind of refocusing your energies back on the inner essence to balance it out with the outer. It's too much yang, then you got to get that yin to balance. And that's the mystery, is the art of balancing the yang and the yin.